You finally make the perfect plan, a new routine, a new goal. Maybe tomorrow, you'll wake up early, exercise, study, work harder, and finally become the person you've been trying to become. For a few hours, you feel unstoppable. Then morning comes, and somehow, you don't want to do any of it. The plan hasn't changed. Your goal hasn't changed. So what happened to your motivation? Here's the strange part. Sometimes, making the plan itself is what makes you feel like you've already made progress. Your brain gets a taste of the future you want before you've actually done anything to earn it. And once that feeling fades, the hard work suddenly feels much less exciting. So maybe the problem isn't that you lost your motivation. Maybe your brain gave you the reward before you started. Think about the last time you made a big plan. Maybe you decided you were finally going to get in shape. Study every day. Wake up at 6 a.m. Finish that project, or completely change your life. And for a moment, you felt different, more focused, more confident, almost like the future version of you had already arrived. But then a few days passed. The excitement disappeared. The plan started feeling heavy, and suddenly, the same goal that made you feel inspired became something you wanted to avoid. This is where most people make a mistake. They assume motivation simply disappeared. So they try to find another motivational video, make another plan, set another goal, and for a moment, they feel motivated again. But the cycle eventually repeats, because there's something strange happening inside your brain when you make a big plan. Planning doesn't just tell your brain what you're going to do. Sometimes, it gives your brain a small taste of what it feels like to have already succeeded, and that creates a dangerous illusion. You can experience the emotional reward of progress without making any actual progress. So in this video, we're going to uncover why making ambitious plans can sometimes drain the very motivation you need to execute them, why your brain becomes excited by the idea of change but resistant to the work required to create it, and most importantly, how to turn that planning energy into real action. Because the goal isn't to stop making big plans. It's to stop letting the plan become the reward. Imagine it's Sunday night. You open a blank page and write down everything you're going to change. Wake up at 6. Work out every morning. Read 30 pages. Study for 2 hours. Stop wasting time on your phone. By the time you're finished, you feel incredible. You haven't done any of it yet, but somehow you already feel productive. And that's where the trap begins. Because your brain doesn't only respond to what you do. It also responds to what you imagine yourself doing. When you picture yourself becoming healthier, smarter, more disciplined, or more successful, you're not simply creating a schedule. You're creating a mental simulation of a better future. And that simulation can feel surprisingly rewarding. For a moment, the uncertainty disappears. You know exactly who you're going to become. You know what your mornings will look like. You can almost see the results. The messy reality of change has been replaced by a clean story where everything works. And your brain loves clean stories. But there's a problem. The feeling of progress and the reality of progress are not the same thing. Planning feels like movement, but planning doesn't require the discomfort of movement. You don't have to wake up when you're tired. You don't have to study when the material becomes difficult. You don't have to exercise when your body wants to stay on the couch. You only have to imagine doing those things. And imagining them is easy. That's why a massive plan can sometimes leave you feeling strangely satisfied before you've even started. You've created the destination. You've imagined the transformation. You've experienced the excitement. But you haven't yet paid the price. And when the excitement fades, all that's left is the work. So why does this happen? Why can thinking about a goal feel so good, while actually working toward it feels so difficult? One answer comes from the way your brain responds to anticipated rewards. Your brain doesn't only care about the reward itself. It also responds to the expectation of getting it. Think about checking your phone. You haven't received a message yet, but the possibility that someone might have texted you is enough to make you reach for it. The anticipation is already pulling your attention. Goal setting can work in a similar way. When you imagine yourself getting fit, becoming successful, finishing the project, or finally changing your life, you're mentally stepping into a future where the reward already exists. And that future can feel incredibly satisfying. But here's the paradox. the more exciting the imagined future becomes, the more disappointing the ordinary first step can feel. Because reality is rarely cinematic. Your perfect plan begins with something painfully ordinary. One page, 10 minutes, one workout, one difficult email, no transformación, no aplausos, no dramatic feeling that your life has changed, just the next small action. And this is where motivation often collapses. Your brain compares the emotional intensity of the imagined future with the discomfort of the present moment. The fantasy is effortless. The work isn't. So your brain starts looking for another way to get that feeling. You make a new plan. You reorganize your schedule. You watch another productivity video. You download another habit tracker. And suddenly, you're planning again. It feels productive. But you're actually avoiding the only part that creates progress. Starting. This is why some people become incredibly good at planning the life they want, without ever living it. The plan keeps giving them the feeling of possibility. But possibility isn't progress. And eventually, the only way out is to stop asking, how? So the next time you feel incredibly motivated after making a huge plan, enjoy that feeling. But don't mistake it for progress. Your brain can give you the excitement of a new beginning, long before you've taken the first step. And that's why the question isn't, how do I stay motivated? It's, how quickly can I turn this plan into action? Don't spend another hour designing the perfect routine. Do the first 5 minutes. Don't build the perfect roadmap. Take the first step, because your future isn't created when you imagine it. It's created when your brain finally gets evidence that you're actually becoming the person you plan to be. The solution isn't to stop dreaming. It's not to stop setting ambitious goals. And it's certainly not to kill your excitement. The problem is what happens after the excitement. Instead of letting the plan become the reward, make action the reward. Take that enormous goal and shrink it until your brain has almost no reason to resist. Don't say, I'm going to study for 3 hours every day. Say, I'm going to open the book and study 1 page. Don't say, I'm going to completely transform my body. Say, I'm going to put on my shoes and walk for 10 minutes. The point isn't that 10 minutes will transform your life. It won't. The point is that action creates something planning never can. Evidence. Every time you act, you prove to your brain that you're becoming the person you imagined. And that evidence is more powerful than another perfect plan. Because motivation doesn't always come before action. Sometimes, action creates motivation. You start moving. Your brain sees progress. Progress creates a small reward. That reward makes the next action easier. And eventually, the behavior starts becoming familiar. You no longer need to imagine yourself as that person. You're collecting evidence that you already are. The transformation becomes less about feeling inspired and more about repeatedly keeping tiny promises to yourself.